Hold on, there we go. And we are back with the third segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. And in this third segment, we're going to be talking about Kevin Durant again, talking about the infamous move to the Brooklyn Nets in 2019, and the move that was both the start and the end of my life as a Brooklyn Nets fan. So there was more news that broke out as to why Kevin Durant ended up choosing Brooklyn over the Knicks. But Kevin Durant's agent apparently really wanted him to sign with the Knicks. Like, he was really pushing the Knicks agenda and him going to New York, because like that would have been good marketing. That would have been good for business. There would have been cameras all over him. The media wouldn't be able to stop talking about Kevin Durant, for God's sakes, if he would have been on the Knicks. And in long story short, there is a quote that he does say, which I will bring up later, but in long story short, he preferred going to Brooklyn because Kyrie Irving signed there first. And so, according to Durant, the Knicks at the time, and the whole thing, and the whole situation, and the whole free agent signing, it had to do with the state of the New York Knicks at the time. He said in a quote, "I was looking at the team. The team was not cool to play for." So that was the end of that quote, basically. He just wasn't cool playing with the Knicks. And another quote, "The Knicks weren't cool." So in other words, he didn't think, you know what? I don't really want to say that, but you know what? Forget it. I will say that. So it doesn't really take much to sugarcoat exactly what he means by the Knicks weren't cool. So obviously at the time, the Knicks were struggling with the team. And the Knicks recently came off of trading Carmelo Anthony over to the Oklahoma City Thunder. So the only bright side on their offense and the only bright side on their team at the time was Kristaps Porzingis. And who's surprised? Kristaps ends up getting injured that same year. So the Knicks were coming off of a lost season. They only were able to grab 17 wins, if I remember correctly, and the team just wasn't doing really well. So given how there was so much cap space, everybody thought that Kevin Durant was going to be the guy to go into New York and take the franchise over and make the Knicks relevant again. But that ended up not happening. He ended up deciding to go to Brooklyn. But the Knicks weren't cool. Again, it doesn't take much to sugarcoat that. The Knicks didn't have enough star power for him. It's as simple as that. I mean, he doesn't really elaborate what it meant for the definition of cool, or his definition of cool, and what it means to play for a cool team. But obviously, coming off of playing with the Golden State Warriors in the 2018-2019 season, going to the Knicks, it's a big jump it's a very big leap. He's going from being on a championship contending team to being on a team that literally was just the worst team in the league, and he's expected to sort of change that. So after 3 straight trips to the finals, and with all the media and drama that was everywhere around him, he wanted to go somewhere in New York that was a bit low key, and that was the reason in the article. He wanted to go to that was said in the article. He wanted to go to somewhere that was a bit low key, but he also wanted to go to New York, and so Kyrie Irving ended up signing with Brooklyn, and that prompted Kevin Durant to go team up with him in Brooklyn and form another super team with that Nets and possibly contend. So apparently it said that he wanted to go somewhere low key, which is, it does not make any sense to me whatsoever. He signed with Kyrie. It doesn't matter where you go with Kyrie Irving. He's going to cause drama in any team. It doesn't matter. And I just think that's incredibly naive. You thought you were going to go to Brooklyn, and then all of a sudden there was going to be no drama around you when you signed with Kyrie Irving. That was just incredibly immature. Not even immature. That's ignorant almost. You have to expect drama coming in from Kyrie. It's just been the player that he's shown to be. And But yes, in other words, like the reason why he chose Brooklyn was because there wasn't enough star power on the Knicks. And that's the stipulation around KD. He's Chuck said this before in on TV. He said that Kevin Durant was not a bus driver. He was like he wasn't the bus driver. He wasn't the one driving the bus. Like you guys, if you guys don't know what I mean, when you're saying that someone is not a bus driver, it's sort of like they aren't really like they aren't really the reason why their team ends up winning the championship. Like Michael Jordan was a bus driver. Kobe was a bus driver in the second half of his career. Shaq was a bus driver. LeBron was a bus driver. All of those players were bus drivers in their career. Kevin Durant, I mean, while he does have 2 Finals MVPs, and so far he's one of the only players to win a Finals MVP in every Finals that he's participated in. Again, it's sort of like he doesn't have the same mentality as a bus driver would have, because like a bus driver would have gone to that Knicks team and he would have turned the entire franchise around. But he didn't do that. He didn't do that without help. And so far, he hasn't done anything in this league without help. Like, seriously, give me one moment in Kevin Durant's career, aside from OKC, and even then you could argue that OKC was part of that, where Kevin Durant didn't have ridiculous star power. Like, ever since Golden State, every team that he's been on has had at least 2 other All-Stars or 2 other Hall of Famers. At least. And this isn't counting some of the players that weren't All-Stars, but were also really good at the time they were on the team. So, with all of this in mind, and with Kevin Durant's mindset, and with the fact that he ended up choosing the Nets, it makes sense how it makes sense how he decides to go to a team that's a little bit less popular, because I honestly am not entirely sure if Kevin Durant would have been able to handle the Knicks media constantly being around him. Like, well, Kevin, like he's gone so far to literally make burners to defend him. So it seems like he's a little bit sensitive, and I don't want to sound a little harsh, but like that's sort of the perception that he has. He's very sensitive to comments on on Instagram, on Twitter, and he really likes commenting on those. And excuse me, but when he was on Golden State, well, when he decided to sign with Golden State, when the media completely tarnished his entire reputation, he went and cried to his agent saying, "Why did you make me do this?" So obviously, being resentful for his recent mistakes for signing with Golden State, it makes sense how he's a little bit sensitive to a lot of the comments that go around on the media. Like, I mean, it's not easy to sort of like desensitize yourself to what the media says for some players, and Kevin Durant's one of them. So, but again, it's really shocking given how good of a basketball player he is, and how he still feels like he has this. It's like he has a chip on his shoulder, and like he still has the need to prove himself, which technically he still does. But at the same time, I don't think he would have done that on New York. And the stipulation around the fact that he constantly needs super teams to aid him, like while so far it's proven to be true in the sense, and it's sort of like lost his respect. I mean, like, again, there's not really much that could be said other than the fact that, like, I don't think he would be able to handle the media around the Knicks, especially at that time, because there would have been a lot of pressure on him, and I'm assuming that Kyrie would go with him. I'm actually going to check real quick right now to see which signing came first. I believe it was Kyrie that ended up signing with the Nets first, but I'm just going to make sure. Just to see which one ended up, because obviously, like, they both made the decision in unison. So they Kevin Durant wasn't going to go if Kyrie wasn't going to go, and it was all just determined. It was all just dependent on who they were going to end up picking up. So if I remember correctly, it was okay. So they signed on the same day, but I believe that Kevin Durant was the player who signed first with that team. So but then that wouldn't really make any sense, because how would the Knicks not be cool at the time if if they would end up getting Kyrie Irving on the roster? Like, you could add anybody to the team. You could add Kyrie to any team and they would become a cool team to play with, and they would become a good team to play with. I mean, I guess like it makes sense how the rest of the players on the Knicks, the average player on the Knicks wasn't as good as the average player on the Nets, I guess, seeing as how the Nets were able to make the playoffs at the time when Kyrie was playing like a little bit of games but not all the games. So I guess that's sort of why he wanted to go to the Nets, because there was overall a lot better talent. And you do want to go to the team that has better talent. So I understand why Kevin Durant like wanted to go there in that sense, but again, it's like the stipulation around him is that he always needs this ridiculous help, and he can never be like the guy on a team. And some people might argue he was the guy on Golden State. No, in my opinion, you cannot be the guy when you're with those guys, because those guys were just ridiculously overpowered. And I've talked about this a lot on several other podcasts. I don't really feel the need to talk about it that much over here, given how, like, again, I've already, like, there's not really much that can be said about, there's not really much to be said, really, about this. Like, we all know that Kevin Durant ended up choosing Brooklyn, and the media was going to be a little too harsh on him. And right now, it's just the fact that he admitted to the Knicks not being a cool team to play on, which is why I decided to bring it up, because we all knew that the Knicks, like, they were really bad, and we all knew that, like, deep down, we all knew that in the end of the day, Kevin Durant wasn't going to end up being a New York Knick. But the reason why a lot of people thought that this would be the case, was because at the time they thought Kevin Durant was a bus driver. They saw Kevin Durant as the best player on that Warriors team since he won the Finals MVP 2 times. But the thing that ultimately killed that, and what sort of changed the narrative, was the fact that Golden State ended up winning a title after Kevin Durant ended up leaving, completely changing like his ring argument towards, like, obviously, like, the argument before was like, I mean, Golden State won before they got KD, but there wasn't really an argument saying that they would win when they didn't have KD after losing him. But now that there is, it's sort of, again, it becomes a lot more difficult to give value to Kevin Durant's rings, given how the same core three players on the Golden State Warriors won a championship with you, before you, and after you. So it's just not a good look for Kevin Durant. But with that, we're out of time for the third segment, so tune in for the fourth segment, where we have an update on Isaiah Stewart. And I'm just going to give a little update on Isaiah Stewart and how he's been arrested. And since there's not much talk around the league, this has been like the only talk going on right now until the games come up. In fact, you know what? In the next segment, after I talk about Isaiah Stewart and him getting arrested, I'll go ahead and I'll touch on some of like the other games that are going on tomorrow, since the NBA is going to be coming back, and we are going to be expecting, and I expect a great mid-season run coming in from the Knicks. And I expect a really poor mid-season run coming in from the Bucks if they continue this road with Doc Rivers. But we'll see about that going into later in the season. But I will be right back after this short break, and I'll go ahead and talk about Isaiah Stewart getting arrested.